Okay everyone, so I decided I'm going to do some tutorial videos. What we're going to do for you guys is we're going to teach you how to make a Shilla Empire sword. They're phenomenal, they're great, quality is perfect. I'm also going to go over why I go in the order that I do, why it works best, and how you can do it at home. Okay, so here are the things we'll need. We'll need the fiberglass rod. We're going to need some epoxy. I like this stuff right here. Clear polyester casting resin from Cast and Craft. You can find it online pretty easily. I like using these graduated cups here. Gives me measurements on it, and it's a good size for what I do. And we're going to need a stir stick. And this also needs a catalyst to activate it and make it harden. Now this comes in an assortment of size, but they hardly ever send enough of the casting resin. So my recommendation is, if you're going to get a big bottle, get another item of casting resin as well. Okay, so I'm going to pour in casting resin. Try to make sure we have the right amount. And I am happy with that measurement. And we add our casting resin. Doesn't take a whole lot of the catalyst. And we mix it up. Now you really want to mix this for a while. Make sure you get a good consistency. I also recommend kind of a round shaped mold is the one I use. And I think we are going to be ready to pour. Okay, so we've got our fiberglass rods, we've got our molds ready, we've already mixed. Now it's pour. And just fill those up. And allow to dry. Now, why did we do the pommel first? Well, with the casting resin, we can't put anything on. We can't put this mold on and then let it dry and take the mold off with a blade on. We can't do it with incidental padding on. We can't do it anything. So core needs to be naked when we apply the pommel. That's step number one. It's the most important step because this is the number one thing that breaks down swords. I've come up with this style of making a sword because it lasts a lot longer. I've only had a couple of these break ever. I switched around with different resins until I got the right one. But yeah, when we wait, that's why we do the pommel first. Alright, as you can see, these are now set up. They're hard. Perfect. So we're going to take the mold off. And then we now have a nice pommel base. It's as hard as the core. It's just what we want. It's perfect for our object. Take this one out. Now it's important, like I said before, that we did not put the blade on yet. All we have is a bare core and the base for the pommel. Alright, so we've got two different types of foam here. We want an inch, about an inch, want it sized about that big. If I have some pre-made here, we'll just use that as a template. Kind of hard to show up there, I'm not sure if you guys can see it or not, but we are tracing out the right size. I've got my nifty saw here. Just move some stuff around so I can get it out. Alrighty. So I've got 1 inch EVA foam, that's one thing you can use. Here I've got 2 pieces of cross-linked polyethylene. It works as well. It's what you want to use for your sword materials, so typically I end up with a lot of this for scrap, so I'll use that. I lovingly call them biscuits. The other item we want to use is made with 2mm thick EVA foam. You can get it at most craft stores. I have some already cut out, pre-cut out here. Same thing, trace it, cut it out. I typically cut these with scissors. It's real easy to cut this stuff out that way. So remember I said we start with pommel first only. I can slide this right on over. Same thing with this one. Now, when I glue, I use a couple of different things. I can use 3M has a nice spray adhesive that works just fine. There's DAP Wellwood glue, you want to use the original, and then there's also barge glue. I use soap dispensers as, like for your dish soap, as my glue dispenser. I'll fill that up. It's a nice little handy tool to have. I like it, makes it easy. We'll spread the glue on nice and even, make sure it gets all over. You want to make sure every bit of it is wet. Now how I tell it's all covered is there's a glossy look to everything that's wet, and I want to make sure all of it is wet. I don't know if you can see, but it's definitely, all of it has a glossy effect to it, and we know all of it is wet. Do the same thing with this one here. Spread it by just rubbing it up against itself. Make sure it's all nice and even. Now we don't want to stick that on right away. We want it to dry a bit. We want to do the same thing with these guys. Put a little bit of glue on that. Spread it evenly on both. And we also want to spread it on the tops of these as well. Add a little more glue. Use that as an applique. Make sure we get all around. Same thing on this guy. Make sure it's nice and even on these. And then we allow it to rest until that glossy look that I told you to look for to make sure you're getting it nice and even. You wait for that glossy look to disappear. It's like waiting for paint to dry at this minute. And what we'll do, you see the only glossy spot is right there, just a little bit, so it's pretty much dry for the most part. So we'll tuck it up and evenly put it on there. Let's see here. It's easier if I can rub my thumb on there. I love gloves because if you've ever done this before, if you're not wearing gloves, you're going to get glue all over yourself, and this stuff does not come off easily. No, not at all. Not easy at all to get off. So kind of tack it on at the bottom. And then we'll try and get this on as even as possible. Right here what I'm doing is I'm just spreading it on, making sure it stays on nice. Now that I'm done with that, that glossy look's gone here, so this should stick on okay. So we want to get that centered. And same thing with this one. Get that centered. Then at this point I use duct tape to stick that on with. Let me just set these up here. Adjust the camera there so you can see what's going on. So, got a nice little stand for when I'm pouring and when I'm taping. That way I can just let it be. There, we're going to get enough tape to where do this. So that's on. Now we're going to put 4 pieces of tape per pommel to keep it nice, compact, and even. So we cross the first 2 opposite of each other. And we want to keep a symmetrical pattern. So the first one we did cross. Now we're going to get the tape going across the other way. Now we're going to add some fabric tape over that, or cloth tape, or athletic tape, whatever your name for it is. We don't want super thick duct tape on this, we just want the thin duct tape. 3M is what I use. Doesn't need to be real pretty because this is going to be covered. But we're going to pull it tight to make sure it's nice, even, make sure everything's pulled down and around, because we don't want that hard surface exposed. So it keeps that nice round shape. It's going to have padding on the top, just that 2mm EVA foam, and then on the bottom we have that 1-inch foam, either cross-link polyethylene or EVA, and it's going to make that pretty dang durable where the core's not going to punch through. That's one of the first things to go on a boffer is that pommel. Core will poke through the foam. But now we have a nice hard flat surface on the bottom to try and stop that from happening. Next we go with that athletic tape, and we're going to follow the same pattern we just did. This is 1.5" athletic tape. It's done the trick for me pretty good over the years. A lot of people will tell you that you should cut this with scissors. It stops it from fraying. I ended up getting athletic tape that's perforated on the edges, kind of like hockey tape. I'm not sure if you'll be able to see that perforation or not. Makes it so we don't get the rough stringy edges where it starts fraying on the sides if you don't cut it. So we'll get this going. Piece of tape I messed up. Once I get those 4 pieces of tape on each pommel, I'll then switch from my 1.5" to 1-inch hockey tape. This stuff, let's see here, let me adjust this real quick. I'll apply some here to keep it all nice and tight together. And then this piece is more for aesthetics, so you don't get that kind of crinkled look up there. I will roll a line all along the outside. I'll end up giving it that nice and tight in look, nice and tight. Very nice looking this way. And there we have the pommels. Okay, so now we have pommels all set, and we cut the core to length. So, depending on what you're doing, you're going to have this plus maybe a stabby tip. So, if you want a 32-inch sword, you're going to have to take into account that space in between, right? We're going to have about a ½ inch here, plus another inch. So if we want a 32-inch sword, I'll measure to 32 inches, right? No, we want to take off 1.5 inches of that. So it'll be, instead of being 32, it'll be 30.5. Next one we'll make a 36-inch, but instead of 36, we'll take 1.5 inches off, so it'll be 34.5. If I can get my tape measure to stay still here, 34.5. We've got our measurements there. And then we'll cut these down. So, we made these cuts 34.5 to make a 36-inch sword at the end after we put the blade on, because we want to take 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches if we're doing a stabbing tip. This one I want 32, so it's going to be at 30.5. Another thing that I've found over the years that's going to increase the life, I'll get ½ inch foam. This right here is 1.5 inches, so I know if I cut this in thirds, I'm going to have a ½ inch by ½ inch little things there. Take my 3M duct tape, breaking off a strip, tape that onto the tip here. What that does is it adds a little extra give, a little extra push for when the blade is on there, and when it's, if you don't have that inside the core, or inside the foam where the core is, it's going to move around on the tip and tear into that foam a little easier on the tip. Whereas if you have that foam taped on there, it's going to give a little more and not hurt the blade, the foam on the blade as much. More a preventative maintenance than anything else. My tape broke. It's okay, I can add some more there. Seems I like my gloves a lot. So I've got those glued on there. Alright, so next we have our foam. Like I said, I've got a bunch of made here. We'll start by cutting out the strips. Cross-linked polyethylene. This is a natural color foam. I've got black. I really like the black stuff. It glues a lot better. It's a lot more durable, I've found. It's the same poundage. A little more pricey, but works for what I want. So I'll cut out 1.5-inch strips. Then I will route it on a router. Cut 1/2 inch by 1/4 inch hole with the router. That way, when everything is said and done, take the core, should glue in there nice and flat, and then you're going to have no gaps when you glue it together. Round hole, round peg, right? Remember preschool, you got the little shapes, you don't want a square hole and a round peg. You want a round hole and a round peg and a round hole. Just like so. Glue those together. And we end up with a foam fry after they're all glued together. Now I like to do a dry fit, make sure everything looks right, make sure that I have the right size blade for it. This looks right for me. I want about a hand and a thumb right there. It looks like it's going to work pretty good. You can also go with a club. Same concept. I'll glue pieces together, route it, and make that as well. Glue it all together. What I'll do, I'm going to glue down the channel, flip it around, glue down the channel. So I've got glue and glue. Rub it together like that where this piece fits inside there. Do it on both sides. Make sure we get it nice and wet all over. Then we'll even it out. This is why gloves is super handy when you're doing this. Otherwise you're going to get glue all over your hands and it's not going to be a good day. Got glue running down the whole channel. You want that glossy look over everything. don't want it so thick to where it's just never going to dry right. We want to apply the glue on both surfaces. So what I do, I'll put this in here, close it up, spin it in here, hold it tight here, hold it tight all along, that way it's over all the surfaces. I'll slide it out there now, and look, yep, it's got that gloss, it's got that glue all over covering it. Now for the fun part, just have to wait. I like putting it together, make sure, okay, is it making strings like spider webs? Is it set up yet? Not yet, so we still have to wait a minute. Starting to stick together a little better. Are we there yet though? Not yet. Still needs to set up more. Starting to stick a little better now. So, place that right in there. Make sure we get that in there. Lay it down one of the sides of the channel. Match the other side. Just push it down. Make sure we get a nice, good fit there. It's sticking on both sides alright. Now if it's not sticking right on this step, see how it's coming apart there? Means we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. It's not quite ready. That glue needs to dry a little more. There's a very particular thing. If you put it in too soon, it won't stick right. If you put it in too late, then it won't stick right. So with this, experience comes in handy, but what I do, fit it in a couple of times. If it's not ready, I'll pull it apart, let it dry some more, and I'll put it back together. It's sticking just fine now. The other side is sticking just fine now. So it's going to stick just fine everywhere. I'm not worried about that bond. I like pushing it a couple more times, make sure we get a solid fit. You look in there. Perfect fit there, right? Squeeze it together a couple more times just to be on the safe side. And we let that dry. Okay, next we get that 3M duct tape and Gorilla tape. Why Gorilla tape? It's a lot thicker, a lot stronger, and remember we have a problem with two different areas. One is the tip, and the other is the pommel. We've taken care of the pommel. We've put a little piece of foam inside on the tip. We're going to put a piece of Gorilla tape right there on either side. Just kind of help strengthen that sword up. On that tip, because that's That's the next place. First, swords break on the pommel. Very next place they break, the tip. So we'll put that Gorilla Tape on, put a strip of duct tape down it, kind of hold that in all together. Got the Gorilla Tape up here, rest, just the 3M duct tape, Gorilla Tape, 3M duct tape. Alright, so we need to take care of our tip now. I use this yoga mat, 1/2 inch. It's nice, squishy, perfect for stabby tips. This is an optional item. You don't need to put this on if you don't want to, or you don't have the materials or funds, but put a bit of glue on there, make it nice and glossy. Spread the glue on what we're gluing it onto, as well as the piece. Got that 1.5 inches thick, and enough to where we're going to cover that top there. Now we're going to let that dry. Still glossy, still not ready. Alright, I think it's ready now. Center that on. Glue that on just like so. Try to make it as even as we can. Alright. Now we have that stabbing tip on there. Alright, another thing I like to do is clean up that rough edge there. I'll even it out on the bandsaw. I cut it to where it's not going to exactly cut into that cross-linked polyethylene. Just enough to keep this nice and flush. Push that out of the way, and now we have that. An almost complete sword. What's it missing? A handle. Now for the oblong handle, what I like to do is I get some chopsticks from your local Chinese restaurant, measure them out. I like having the pointy end down at the pommel to kind of taper it, because this tapers out, we want it to taper there. Get a rough estimate of where we want it. Score it. This stuff is made out of bamboo, so after you score it, it should just break nice and easy like that. Score it all around. Nice, easy break. I'm going to put that on either side with some duct tape. Alright, and flip it around. There we are. Now, you want to use 3/8 diameter rope. I'll get the 3/8 diameter. Use this athletic tape again. We'll start it at the top here. Wrap that on like so. Now I'll use Gorilla Glue. I'll put a bead down the handle under the rope. Reason for that is a lot of times after use rope will stretch, it'll move around, and if you don't put this bead of Gorilla Glue on, what ends up happening is the rope will end up mostly on one side and loose on the other, and it won't be as good as you'd hoped. Just roll that on. Now we have a rope handle. good pommel, good oblong handle for indexing, foam, and stabbing tip. All that's left is the cover. Alright, now we want our fabric for the cover, right? I've got this nice cutting board. It's been serving me very well. I bought it for my wife because she wanted to do some quilting, and then I ended up stealing it from her. So hopefully she doesn't stay too mad about that, but I've got an orange cover here. This cutting pad makes it a bit easy, so I can just do it. If I fold it up, now we want this to be 9.5 inches. If we made our blade with half-inch pieces, half-inch thick, 1.5 inch, total circumference around here, we want this to be 9.5 inches to fit nicely. So we'll put this on here, put it on the edge, go 9.5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.5. Right about here. Still check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Oop, good thing we double checked there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.5. So we'll cut that. And now we have a piece. It's going to be our sword cover there. Alright, so we've got our piece of fabric cut here for our sword cover. I'll start by folding it like so for the drawstring. We got about 5/8 of a inseam there, big enough to make a tube to put a drawstring through. Fold it in half and sew it up the middle with that 9.5 inch length that we did. Should fit for a 1/4 inch inseam. Let's move this out of the way for a second so we can mark where we want our sword end. Put this on the end here. I'll center this not to the edge of the fabric, but to the edge of the line we made, the inseam. We don't want it uneven. String came out. Now made the sole. Cut the excess off. And voila! We now have a sword cover. Put the drawstring through it, turn it inside out like a sock. We have made a sword cover. So we've got the sword here. Go ahead and slide this on. Have a good sword cover here. And we are all done. Successfully made a sword. A good Boffer sword. Alright, I hope we've enjoyed our instructional video on how to make a Boffer sword the way I do it. And I hope everyone enjoyed, and I wish you all the best. Until next time, when we make our next project. Alright, I hope we've enjoyed our instructional video on how to make a Boffer sword the way I do it. And I hope everyone enjoyed, and I wish you all the best. Until next time, when we make our next project.